Thank you for coming today to attend this press conference, and we will start now directly. Actually, EUPAC is the organizer of this press conference, and also thanks you for coming today. The occupying state is actively seeking various or highest actions or reactions, internal, Palestinian, Arab, and international, including those from Europe, to bolster his actions or crimes. Today, we will delve into the European Union position and its potential impacts on the crime's gravity in Gaza, as well as on political and legal fronts, both within Europe and on an international scale. It's essential to commence our discussion by clearly defining the nature of this crime and its humanitarian implication, even extending to European citizens of Palestinian origin. Joining us today, Muhammad Halalu, who lost 30 members of his family in Gaza. Muhammad, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mohammed Halalu. Thank you for coming. My name is Mohammed Halalu. I'm Belgian from Palestinian origins. I work as an independent IT manager. Currently, I'm working for the European Commission. I moved to Belgium 13 years ago. I have 5 children living here near Brussels. I would like to share with you today my personal experience. As last week, I was, like others, watching the horror as the western part of Gaza were massively bombarded. I recognized the area because I've been living there for 32 years. It was Al-Shati refugee camp. As the news unfolded, panic set in. I attempted to reach out to my family that evening without success because the communication was cut off. The restoration of communication next day, Monday morning, brought no relief but the sad news, heartbreaking news that my entire family, seeking refuge in their house, had become victims of an airstrike. My mother, my sisters, my brothers, and their children, including 12 children, 11 women, one of them pregnant, all have been killed in an instant. What I would like to say is that days before the attack, I have been in contact with my sister when the communication allowed for it. I asked my sister to turn on the camera to show me how the situation is. My mother seemed exhausted. My brother was trying to making bread using the wood fire on the ground. I asked my sister if they have enough food, and she responded with uncertainty. She said, I don't know. I knew she knew because she used to cook for everyone. She used to make food for the entire family. She didn't want to be negative. I know that they didn't have enough food for the days ahead. The Israeli occupation treated them not only with their death machines, but with the silent weapon of hunger, lack of water, electricity, and medical care. 30 lives have been eliminated, with their dreams, with their plans for better future, has been extinguished in one instant. Today, in front of these crimes that have been committed on air, that have been watched on TV. This has a great impact on me personally, as the only survivor of the family. You can imagine the amount of sadness that we have had to live with my children here in Brussels. I could not go to work for the second week. I don't know when I will be able to go to work. The children had to stay with me as a united family together, supporting each other for 1 week. They started to go back to school, but they will certainly need some time to recover from this heartbreaking news. They have lost their grandmother, their uncles, their aunts, their cousins, who spent very beautiful time 2 years ago with our last visit to Gaza. I would like to say that I will be striving for not only peace, but also justice. I'm committed to do whatever I can do to bring the criminals in front of justice. And I will collaborate with everyone who can help on that. We would like to make a place for justice in this world, and the world should not take a blind eye on these crimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Muhammad, and all of our best feelings, sadly. Thank you. Now we have another, actually, unfortunately, Muhammad should go to another meeting about the same issue. He will talk otherwise maybe in the parliament, yeah, today, in the European Parliament. So thank you for coming, Muhammad. Thank you.
Before he leaves.
I don't know, ask him.
Ask you a question before you leave.
Can you answer in one question?
Yes, sure.
You said you are going to take, some action. So what are you going to do? What will you do? Practically.
There are some legal organizations who have already contacted me, and they want me to do a kind of mandate so they can bring this case in front of the International Court of Crimes.
Okay, thank you, Muhammad. And here we have also maybe people or organizations who can help you in that. Thank you, Muhammad. Now we have another case with Khalid Sabah, who is a Belgian citizen also. He will maybe let us know more about his story and what happened with his family and friends in Gaza. Welcome, Khalid.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. Sorry. It doesn't work.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry?
I am.
Okay.
It's okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Al Sabah Khalid. I'm from Gaza, Shatikan, but I'm Belgian, but my origin it's Palestinian. It's maybe my English not very well, but I think everybody will understand me. Actually, I lose 5 people in my family. There are 3 cousins and my aunt. She's dead in my house, and 3 cousins they dead behind my house. They coming in my house to be safe, and they dead in the way. And my aunt, she's sick. She have cancer, and she's dead inside the house because they bomb so much neighbors. And with my family, they find her downstairs. She is dead, and since now I don't know news about half my family because half my family they run away from the west, and half my family we have 2 child, they are handicapped and nobody can take them with them, and they stay in a Shifa hospital. And everybody here they see this morning what's happening in a Shifa hospital, and with all this situation it's very terrible to live even here. Even I cannot go my work, even I cannot thinking about what's happening actually, I don't have so much to saying, just I says I'm searching about justice. I will search about lawyer, everybody he sharing this massacre, he do anything, even he speak in Europe or everywhere in the world. He says about this massacre, he says it's not genocide, he says anything, it's not true. I will go with him in the court and he will pay, because actually my family, the first things, my mom, she have cancer. She don't have medicine. They bomb the hospital for people for the cancer at Turkey hospital, and they bomb RNTC hospital. My mother, every 3 months, she must check about her cancer. She must have medicine every day. There is no medicine. There is no news. They're shooting 2,000 bomb phosphor, white phosphor, in near my house, and we have so much videos about this inside my house. My family, they are civilian. Half my house, it's bomb, it's demand, and my family all civilian. Nobody in my family it's not civilian. Nobody Hamas near my house, like what they say. All the civilian inside my house, even my cousins, they are 3 cousins, they are girls, and they are 2 between them, they are child. My aunt, she is very old, she's not very old, she's 65, she's not, but not very young. She is dead, and she's will not be Hamas already, you know, she have cancer and she's sick. And even my brother, he have sugar, he have diabetes, and he don't have his medicine since one month and a half. He's just under them, he's just 36 years, and he don't have his medicine. And my father too, he have sickness, and he don't have his medicine, and they are under the attack all the day. Attack, 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 attack. Even my sister house, it's bomb. And my sister, she is one teacher, and she's crashed 2 child from her child, they are crashed inside the house. They are, one it's 6 years and one it's 10 years, and it's half my family now inside this house. It's already crashed. There is no window, there is no door, there is nothing to leave. And the other half family, they are in a Shifa hospital, and the situation, I don't know if they still live. Some sniper shot them. There are 2 child, it's handicapped with them. There are 1 child 6 years, 1 child 4 years. And my brother, he have diabetes, and they don't have food since 1 week in Ashifa hospital, because anybody go out, go inside, he is dead. Then I don't know if my brother, he's still alive or not. And with all this situation, I searching about lawyer. I will go in the justice. I'm Belgian, and my family, I'm working here. I pay tax. I'm like anybody Belgium here. I respect the law, and I will go with the law, like everybody. Anybody in Europe, he says about this genocide, it's not genocide. Anybody says Israel must continue in this genocide, I will go with him in the court, and I have every photo, I have everything. It says it's one genocide, all its civilian under attack, and we see how the law in Europe, what will do with them. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Khalid. Thank you.
You're
شكرا بارك الله فيك وعظم الله أجركم. حمدان الضميري, he is the coordinator of the Palestinian community in Belgium. Actually, Hamdan, we feel the impact not only political, legal, and humanitarian here in Belgium, but also with Muhammad and Khalid and more others. We feel the social impact here in Belgium. بدك بالعربي ولا فهمت شو بحكي؟ Okay. لا, you will answer in French, yeah? In French, but yes. So حمدان ضميري, احنا بنحكي هنا عن التأثير حتى الاجتماعي على البنية الاجتماعية الأوروبية من خلال جرائم اللي هم البلجيك من أصل فلسطيني. From one side, impact of the crime of genocide in Gaza between the EU position and the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and from other side, it's also the public opinion in Europe. اللي هو okay, please. Who needs the translation to English, from French to English, please? He will talk in French, actually. So if anybody needs to. Thank you. Yes, welcome, Hamdan.
Oui, merci. Effectivement, donc, je fais partie de ce qu'on appelle la diaspora palestinienne. Vous savez que le peuple palestinien, à cause de la Nakba en 1948, il a été dispersé un peu partout dans le monde et qu'une partie des Palestiniens, presque la moitié, c'est vrai, ils habitent dans le territoire, ce qu'on appelle la Palestine historique, c'est-à-dire les 3 parties de la Palestine historique, mais aussi il y a l'autre partie des Palestiniens qui habitent, qui sont dispersés un peu partout dans le monde, et moi, comme d'autres, comme moi, presque 7 millions, nous sommes, nous, on est ici en Europe, mais il y en a d'autres qui sont en Amérique latine, aux États-Unis, en Australie, dans le monde arabe, etc., etc. Bon. Donc, nous sommes tous affectés par ce qui se passe à Gaza, soit parce que nous avons des familles là-bas, parce que nous avons des connaissances là-bas. Moi-même, je ne suis pas originaire de Gaza, je suis originaire de Tul Karem. Donc, hier, j'ai vu des photos de ce qui se passe à Tul Karem, le camp de réfugiés de Tul Karem, là où je suis né personnellement. Et si on gomme le mot Tul Karem dans ces images-là, c'est presque la même chose que Gaza. Donc, la destruction qui est arrivée hier dans le camp des réfugiés de Tul Karem, c'est presque équivalent à ce qui arrive dans la bande de Gaza. Cela me conduit à parler peut-être de premier sujet rapidement de mon intervention courte, c'est-à-dire que les Israéliens ne visent pas seulement la bande de Gaza. Donc il y a une agression israélienne massive contre tout le peuple palestinien. C'est vrai, Gaza, il y a une particularité parce qu'il y a une politique d'extermination de la population gazaouite. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle on voit tout ce qu'on voit quotidiennement depuis un mois ou 41 jours. Il y a une politique programmée, planifiée de la part des Israéliens qui vise à tuer le maximum, à détruire le maximum des maisons, des infrastructures de la population civile de Gaza. Et cette politique, vous savez, donc malheureusement tous les jours, le nombre de victimes qui tombent sous les bombardements israéliens augmente jour après jour. Et rien n'est épargné à Gaza, rien n'est épargné. L'école, les écoles, les mosquées, les églises, les hôpitaux, comme vous le savez, les maisons des gens, les institutions publiques, etc. Les rues, comment ils font avec les rues palestiniennes à Gaza. Vraiment, c'est une politique qui vise à vider le territoire de Gaza et à expulser par la force, par la violence, etc., les 2 millions et palestiniens qui habitent à Gaza vers d'autres pays, surtout l'Égypte. Vous savez, c'est un plan israélien. Mais ce qui se passe à Gaza aussi, il y a quelque chose qui passe aussi dans le territoire de la Cisjordanie. En Cisjordanie, c'est une politique israélienne qui est beaucoup plus ancienne que le 7 octobre. Et vous savez très bien quelles sont les pratiques israéliennes quotidiennement dans le territoire de la Cisjordanie, les arrestations, les assassinats tous les jours. Il y a plus que 160 morts depuis le 7 octobre jusqu'à maintenant parmi la population civile palestinienne dans le territoire de la Cisjordanie. À cela, il faut ajouter presque 2500 personnes détenues qui s'ajoutent à un nombre important des prisonniers palestiniens dans les prisons d'Israël. Donc 10 500 presque de nouvelles arrestations parmi la population de la Cisjordanie, et les incursions quotidiennes, les assassinats quotidiens. Il y a 3 jours d'ici, il y avait, pendant un seul jour, il y avait 17 tués dans le territoire de la Cisjordanie. Hier, dans le camp des réfugiés de Tul Karem, là où je suis né personnellement, il y avait 6 plus les blessés, etc., avec la destruction des rues dans ce camp de réfugiés palestiniens. Si on ajoute à la Cisjordanie le territoire, ce qu'on appelle derrière la ligne verte, c'est-à-dire sur le territoire sur lequel Israël était créé en 1948, là, la manière dont le traitement de la population palestinienne, arabe, sur ce territoire-là, ça aussi, il est particulier. C'est un traitement, c'est l'empêchement total de toute expression de condamnation, de solidarité de cette population, 1 600 000 personnes. Ils sont interdits de s'exprimer vis-à-vis de ce qui se passe à Gaza. tout Palestinien en 48 qui essaye de manifester, de déclarer je dirais, sa condamnation de ces crimes qui se passent à Gaza, ben, il est empêché, il est interdit. Même les parlementaires arabes à la Knesset, ils sont interdits de manifester, de se rassembler dans une expression quelconque. Et celui qui écrit sur le Facebook ou d'autres moyens d'expression, il est arrêté tout de suite par la police israélienne. Cela montre à quel point que cette agression israélienne contre le peuple palestinien, elle est massive. Elle concerne tous les Palestiniens en Palestine historique, que ce soit à Gaza, que ce soit en Cisjordanie, que ce soit derrière la ligne verte. Ça, c'est le premier point dans mon intervention. Le deuxième point dans mon intervention, c'est que Israël a construit depuis le 7 octobre tout un travail et politique et médiatique. Israël, il a exporté à l'ensemble du monde et surtout le monde occidental sa manière de présenter ce qui se passe depuis le 7 octobre. Il a essayé de dire « je suis l'agressé ». Je suis l'agressé, les Palestiniens sont les agresseurs dans ce conflit-là. Et tout le monde sait que le 7 octobre n'est qu'une conséquence, c'est une phase dans un conflit qui remonte à des décennies en arrière. Le conflit Israël-Palestine, Israël-monde arabe, ça remonte loin dans l'histoire. Et Gaza, je dirais les événements à Gaza depuis le 7 octobre, c'est une conséquence de tout ce conflit-là. C'est la raison pour laquelle, je dirais, la manière, le discours israélien est basé sur « je suis l'agressé, moi, État d'Israël, moi, peuple israélien, moi, ville israélienne, moi, civil israélien, etc., etc. » alors que l'autre partie, c'est une organisation qui s'appelle Hamas et les terroristes qui agressent Israël avec tout ce qui représente Israël. Ça, c'est le discours israélien. Mais en réalité, ce discours israélien qui a réussi au début depuis le 7 octobre, il a réussi malheureusement au niveau médiatique, il continue. Nous continuons à payer le prix de ce discours israélien, mais aussi il a réussi au niveau politique. Malheureusement, on a des amis en Europe où ce discours-là, il a réussi en disant « Ah oui, mais Hamas, il a attaqué Israël ». Mais en réalité, Hamas n'a pas attaqué Israël. D'abord, ceux qui ont attaqué ou ceux qui ont pénétré dans les colonies israéliennes, ce sont les enfants des réfugiés palestiniens. Il faut savoir que quand on parle de Gaza, 70% de la population de Gaza sont des descendants des réfugiés palestiniens. Ce sont les personnes dont les parents sont venus justement des territoires sur lesquels ces colonies étaient créées. Donc ils ne sont que retournés quelque part sur le territoire de leurs parents, de leurs ancêtres, etc. Non, Hamas n'a pas attaqué Israël. Le 7 octobre, c'est une conséquence et je dirais l'objectif israélien de manipuler le monde, s'ils ont réussi au début, mais l'opinion publique, justement européenne, parce que nous sommes en Europe, elle a commencé à se modifier, à changer. Donc ce discours-là ne marche plus maintenant. Les forces politiques, il y a beaucoup de forces politiques qui reviennent maintenant sur la raison et en disant non, Israël, il a un autre objectif que de réagir vis-à-vis de ce qui se passe à Gaza. Israël n'est pas dans une réaction. Israël, il a un plan et le plan israélien, c'est de vider le territoire de Gaza. C'est pourquoi il y a les massacres, c'est pourquoi il y a ce carnage-là. Et l'objectif, c'est d'expulser les Palestiniens et de faire vivre à ces Palestiniens ce qu'on appelle la deuxième Nakba palestinienne.
Excusez-moi, Hamdan, pour gagner de temps que tu es là, une question pour répondre en 2 minutes. S'il te plaît, alors l'impact de la position européenne sur l'opinion publique européenne et surtout aussi la Ligue palestinienne, la communauté palestinienne en Belgique.
Et d'abord, sur les Européens, moi j'ai dit donc au début, le discours israélien, il a réussi malheureusement, médiatiquement, politiquement, mais ça a commencé à changer depuis un certain temps quand les gens ils ont commencé à voir les conséquences des bombardements, les massacres à cause des bombardements, etc. Là, c'est tout un changement qui commence à être opéré et la preuve, c'est que les manifestations, les réactions dans les rues, dans les places publiques, ça commence à prendre une ampleur extraordinaire. Moi, je parle de Bruxelles, si je me limite au pays dans lequel je vis. À Bruxelles, on a commencé avec des petits rassemblements au début, après le 7 octobre, mais quand on a fait la première manifestation le 22 octobre, on était presque 40 000 dans les rues de Bruxelles, dans le quartier européen. Et la dernière manifestation qu'on a fait, donc c'était le 11 novembre, il y avait plus que 60 000 dans les rues de Bruxelles. Ça montre que l'opinion publique européenne commence à agir, à bouger et à dire qu'Israël il a un autre plan que de réagir vis-à-vis de ce qui se passe, de ce qui s'est passé le 7 octobre. Non, il a son plan et son plan c'est justement de vider le territoire de Gaza pour des raisons géopolitiques, économiques, etc., etc., et causer à la population palestinienne une nouvelle Nakba. Mais les Palestiniens eux-mêmes ne vont pas partir de Gaza, ils resteront à Gaza. Ceux qui habitent dans le camp des réfugiés de Jabalia, parce que je suis en contact avec des Palestiniens là-bas, ils sont toujours à Jabalia, malgré les massacres, malgré les bombardements massifs, etc. Ils sont toujours là-bas, les habitants de Gaza. Ils sont toujours à Gaza, même s'ils se déplacent pour des raisons sécuritaires d'un côté, enfin, d'une région à une autre, mais ils sont toujours dans la bande de Gaza.
Ok,
Ils ne
merci,
quitteront
Hamdan.
pas ce territoire.
Merci beaucoup, Hamdan. Anybody has maybe questions, journalists or others? Because we will go to the next session. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Khalid. Thank you, Hamdan. Yeah, we will. Okay. Normally we have also the lawyer, Mr. Isa Gultasar, but maybe he will come later because he has a job. Anyway. Yeah, welcome. Another time, welcome today with us here in this press conference to talk about the impact of the European position, the legal, political, social, humanitarian impacts of the European position. As we know, in Europe, much like in various countries globally, legal experts are engaged in a dual effort. On one hand, they seek preventive measures to dissuade, to stop the crimes, and from other side, they endeavor to enact stringent and to punish the criminals. So how it works, I will let experts talking about that. And I will start from Mr. Naji Harraj. Welcome, Mr. Naji.
Thank you. This morning, we heard stories, very sad stories, from Palestinians who live here in Brussels. And they talk about the impact of what's happening there to their families and their extended families, to their lives here in Europe. And let us also remember what those families are feeling in Gaza with the continued bombardment for the more than 40 days until now. And this is, of course, it's not as many people is explaining, is not started on the 7th of October. This is the life of the Palestinian since the starting of the occupation. Each year we are witnessing a round of collective punishment, of bombardment, carpet bombardment, and of course the siege. The sanction against Gaza is continued for the last 14 years. So we are questioning the European position about all that. Now in this round, we have more than 12,000, around that number, Palestinian killed. Of course, there are many thousand under the rubble of the houses or the buildings. There are probably 200,000 buildings were totally destroyed. Beside, of course, the attacks on the hospital you have seen in the last week, the intensive attack against the hospital, beside preventing the medical aid. And so that yesterday, the doctor at the hospitals, they announced that they buried about 200 bodies in the yard of the hospitals because they died for the lack of the medicine. And yesterday also, probably some of you have seen the footages of the infants were moved from their incubator, trying to find a safe place for them or another place for them because the incubator in the Shifa hospital were no longer sufficient to keep them alive. It's very well known that a deliberate attack on hospitals is a war crime. It's very well known that the deliberate attack on the intense population areas is a war crimes. And nevertheless, we just start hearing some position from European politician about the ceasefire, that they are thinking now of the ceasefire. I mean, this should have happened long time ago. This should have happened from the first week when Israel started this huge attack against the Palestinian. I came from Geneva, and there we were listening day by day at the Human Rights Council and other human rights forum. The European countries, most of them, they are speaking about human rights every day. Also, you know that in their relations with other countries, in most of their treaties and agreement with other countries, respecting human rights, it comes as a condition in this treatment and in this relation. But when it comes to the situation in Palestine, when it comes in the situation in Gaza, we witness a different position. Most of the European countries, for years now, not from the 7th of October, for years now, they boycott the discussion on Palestine at the Human Rights Council. We have item 7, which is located to discuss the human rights situation in Palestine, where we have the Special Rapporteur on Palestine and the High Commissioner for Human Rights speaking about the situation in Palestine. Unfortunately, most of the European countries, or even all of them, they boycott that discussion. They just leave. Usually they leave the room, the Human Rights Council room, and they did not participate. They never participate in this discussion in the past probably 7 years until now. So we were expecting that with all these casualties and attack, that they will have a position that can be in conformity with their legal system. I know that all the European countries, they have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other human rights convention embedded in their laws. But unfortunately, we didn't see any reflecting of that when it comes to the situation in Palestine. Nevertheless, we must mention that at the human rights bodies, there are positions that I would say kind of brave positions, but they are, of course, according to the human rights standard, especially the position of the Special Rapporteur on Palestine, Madame Francisca Albanese, when she spoke from the beginning about the situation, and she asked to stop the massacre, and she joined another 8 special reporters by describing what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. She talked about that from the beginning with other special reporter, and they come back later also to speak about that what's going on in Gaza is going to be a genocide, and they appeal to the whole world to do whatever they can to stop the war, to stop these massacres. But unfortunately, you have seen at the UN that the US vetoed the resolution that call to a ceasefire in Gaza.
Yeah, Mr. Najib,
Sorry.
please, if you can, 1 minute more.
Okay, thank you. I will not speak about other special reporter. I mean, special reporter on internally displaced person also said that forcible population transfer. This is after the Israeli government asking the Palestinian in Gaza to leave to nowhere. He said that forcible population transfer constitute a crime against humanity, and collective punishment is prohibited under international law. I know Mr. Fairman will touch upon the international humanitarian law, but now we are speaking about accountability here. We just heard the Palestinian witnesses who are seeking accountability. We are here in Brussels. First of all, we have submitted a letter to the European Union and the European Parliament. This letter was signed by almost a coalition of more than 50 NGOs, asking for a clear position from the European countries, from European Union, to stop the war in Gaza, and of course to end the occupation, because stop this round of war, ceasefire or anything like that will not end the plight of the Palestinian people. The plight
Thank you, Mr.
will
Najib.
Palestinian people and by the occupation.
I hope
Thank
that you will have more time to answer to questions of journalists here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now we are with Dr. Mrari Abdel Majid, please. No, it's okay.
C'est bon, ouais. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Tout d'abord, je vais m'excuser parce que je suis mandaté par les avocats de la plainte et ils m'ont demandé et sollicité de leur présenter ou bien les présenter ici aux conférences, mais à condition que je parle en arabe. C'est la demande de la direction et notre équipe juridique, surtout avec notre cher ami Gilles Devers, et après il y aura une petite traduction s'il y a quelqu'un qui peut assurer la traduction en anglais ou bien en français. Sinon, je peux faire des petites interventions en français de temps en temps. Alors, il y avait une plainte qui a été déposée le 9. Il y avait une plainte entre les deux. Entre les deux. Ouais. Il y avait une plainte qui a été introduite et déposée auprès de la Cour pénale internationale le 9 novembre, c'est jeudi dernier, pour crime de génocide en se basant sur l'article 6 de la déclaration de Rome. C'est la déclaration qui organise la Cour pénale internationale. C'est l'article 6 qui mentionne et qui donne les options et une description de quoi il s'agit-il et de quoi s'agit et c'est quoi un crime de génocide. Pourquoi génocide et pas crime de guerre et pas crime contre l'humanité? Tout simplement parce que ce qui se passe actuellement sur Gaza, c'est un crime de génocide qui a été annoncé et déclaré par les politiciens israéliens et par les hauts responsables militaires de l'occupant. Il annonce le crime avant qu'il l'exécute. Ça veut dire qu'il y a une intention criminelle. Il dit que je vais raser et je vais attaquer les hôpitaux. Il attaque les hôpitaux. Je suis en train de combattre avec des animaux. Bah, il a exécuté les êtres humains, les enfants, les femmes, les hôpitaux, les écoles de l'UNRWA et tout ça. Lorsqu'on voit l'article 6 de la déclaration contre le génocide, on voit comme quoi toutes les options de ce crime, on le voit sur le terrain. On le voit l'exécution de l'article 6. On voit l'article 2 de la Convention contre le génocide et l'article 6 de la Déclaration de Rome. On le voit sur le terrain. On le voit exécuter. Les 5 options de ce crime, on le voit sur le terrain. Alors, les 300 et quelques, là maintenant ce matin, Maître Gilles Devers, le responsable et le président de ce groupe, il m'a annoncé que maintenant on est arrivé à 420. Le 9 novembre, on a été 310. Aujourd'hui, on est à 420 avocats. 420 avocats de Gazaouis. 420 avocats qui travaillent pour les Palestiniens, pour défendre cette cause. Ils peuvent compter sur nous, sur nos actions juridiques. Alors la plainte, elle a été déposée entre les mains de M. le procureur Karim Khan et aussi entre les mains du président de chambre des victimes. Et M. le président de chambre des victimes, c'est un ancien, c'est un ex-procureur de l'Allemagne fédérale. On a été bien accueilli par le président de chambre des victimes avec son équipe. Il a exprimé son soutien au peuple palestinien. Il a exprimé comme quoi le peuple palestinien et les Gazaouis ont droit à une justice. Ben, ça, c'est un message fort qui a été envoyé par un haut responsable de la Cour pénale internationale qui assure les Palestiniens quand même. Et voilà, il y avait d'autres points techniques qui ont été abordés avec l'équipe de la Cour pénale internationale et avec les experts de la Cour pénale. Le jour de rendez-vous qui a duré 2h30, même plus. 2h30 de débat. Débat vraiment qui a été un petit peu chaud. Un débat, on n'a pas été d'accord sur pas mal de points. On a quand même donné des remarques sur la façon de travail de la Cour pénale internationale, sur la façon de travail de monsieur le procureur de la Cour pénale, sur ces doubles mesures. Pourquoi il n'a pas, il n'a pas pris l'initiative comme ce qu'il a fait pendant la guerre de l'Ukraine. Il a même annoncé pas mal de procédures. Il y a un mandat d'arrêt contre le président russe, Poutine et son ministre de la Défense, parce qu'il y a des centaines de morts. Il y a plus que 5000 morts. Il y a plus que 4800 morts enfants. 4800 enfants. Il y a plus que 300 000, ou bien 3000 et quelques femmes, des hôpitaux carrément rasés, des écoles rasées, et on n'a pas le droit à un mandat d'arrêt. Ils ne méritent pas un mandat d'arrêt. Netanyahou, ils sont ministres de la Défense, ils sont conseillers. Mais c'est quoi ces doubles mesures? Ça, soit on applique le droit international, parce que le droit international, c'est pas un menu. On choisit ce qu'on va manger, ce qu'on va prendre. Soit on l'applique entièrement, soit on ne l'applique pas. Et ça, on n'a pas accepté, c'est ce qu'on a exprimé à monsieur le procureur de la Cour pénale internationale. S'il y a des questions, parce que le sujet il est un petit peu... Non,
oui,
s'il y a des questions
oui,
après,
peut-être on va attendre les questions pour
Exactement,
expliquer encore plus que ça. Et maintenant, avec monsieur Yann Fermont, s'il vous plaît, alors, monsieur Yann. Okay, yes, en anglais. Ah, sorry, yes, please.
I was asked to speak in English, so I will try to do that. First of all, of course, I want to pay tribute not only to the civil victims of the war on Gaza which is going on today, and of which we have every day unbearable images and unbearable information, such as the ones we heard here today. But I also want to say that I think the position that is taken, especially by the European Union, is actually a totally irresponsible position. Politics and international law are always intertwined. There is no international law without a political context, and the political context influences, of course, international law. I think the first thing we should see when we speak about Europe is that in the world, the European, Israeli, and US position is at this moment completely isolated. The position of Europe is constantly repeated, of course, in our media. But if you look at the rest of the world has another opinion on this question. The rest of the world has an opinion which defends more than ever respect for international law and for the rules of international law in the conflict between Palestine and Israel. And so I think that is a very important thing first to say, because if we speak about the European position, we have to be aware that that is a minority position on the in the international field, in the international community at this moment. And so the legal position, the legal stand taken by the European Union is, of course, is a result of that political position, is a result of the political position that has been taken. For example, when after the attack on 7th of October, Israel fraudulently referred to the right to self-defense, as it is enshrined in Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations. The European Union followed that. It is obviously a fraud, because there can never be, never ever under international law, a right to self-defense for an occupying, for a country organizing an illegal occupation. It's impossible. The right to self-defense, as defined by the Charter of the United Nations, is the right of a country that is under aggression by another country to defend itself for the necessary time until the Security Council can take the necessary measures. So when Israel, immediately after the attack on the 7th of October, said, we have the right to self-defense as defined in Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, it is a fraud. And the European Union is, of course, fully aware of the fact that this is a fraud. If we look at the position of the countries of the South, those positions are much more in line with international law and with the Charter of the United Nations. For example, when Brazil presented a draft resolution in the Security Council, and when the US and Europe tried to include in that resolution a reference to the right to self-defense, Brazil and the countries of the South, completely in line with international law, said we will not do so. And the result has been that the resolution, of course, has been vetoed by the United States. But the position of the countries of the South, which is contrary to the position of the European Union, is actually a position which is much more in line with international law than the positions of the European Union. Europe has, of course, responsibilities. Europe has international responsibilities under international. The European countries have responsibilities under the treaties, under certain treaties. I would like to refer to two only, because there are many, but there are two only, which I would like to cite. The first one is the Geneva Conventions. The Geneva Conventions, the common Article 1 of the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949, which are actually the conventions that I would say organize the responsibilities of states in a situation of armed conflict. The common Article 1 of those conventions says that the high contracting parties undertake to respect and to ensure respect for the present convention in all circumstances, which means that every country that adheres to the Geneva Conventions, and of course all European countries did ratify the Geneva Conventions, are bound by an obligation not only to respect the laws of war in their own eventual conflicts, in the conflict in which they are involved, but also to ensure respect for the convention in all circumstances, which means that there is not only an obligation towards conflicts in which they are involved, there is also an obligation towards armed conflicts in which they are not involved. And the reflection of that is the obligation, which is also part of the Geneva Conventions, to install the so-called universal jurisdiction, which means that every country has the obligation to prosecute and to punish war crimes wherever they were committed in the world. And so I think the actions and the policies conducted by the European countries, and of course we are now speaking about this very moment, but I mean it's not a new phenomenon, of course. The violations and the impunity Israel has benefited from for violations of international law is going on for decades. But now it's, of course, it becomes even more clear with what is happening today in Gaza. So if the European Union, the countries of the European Union see that war crimes are committed, they have to undertake every necessary, every possible measure, every means they have in their hands to stop those war crimes. And I think, of course, it doesn't mean that the European Union can send military personnel or undertake military action against Israel, but there is a lot of different types of measures that can be taken. Of course, a boycott on arms, on arms trade. I think that's an extremely important thing, and it's, by the way, not only a general obligation, it's also an obligation that derives from the Treaty on the Trade of Weapons, which was adopted in 1994 in the framework of the United Nations, and which says very explicitly in its article, and I want to read that out to you in a second, in its article 5.3, a state party shall not authorize any transfer of conventional arms covered under Article 2 if it has knowledge at the time of authorization that the arms or items would be used in the commission of genocide, crimes against humanity, or grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions. Which means that there is an international obligation on the states, the European states, to immediately act upon the arms trade as it is defined in Article 3 of the Treaty on Arms Trade, which is ratified by all European countries. So there is a series of things which can be done immediately by the European states. Products also, the products from the occupied territories, of course, another question. The diplomatic action. So states are under the obligation to do whatever is possible to stop this series of war crimes and crimes against humanity that are obviously committed today in Gaza. The problem is, of course, which, as it is very often with international law, is that there is no real enforcement mechanism. There is not an international police force that can force states to obey their international obligations. And what I would like to say there, and I will conclude on that, is that we had a similar situation with the apartheid regime. We had a similar situation with the apartheid regime in South Africa, which was exercising massive repression against the black population against which of course had an apartheid regime, as Israel has an apartheid regime towards the Palestinians. And there was no enforcement mechanism either. There were obligations under international law for all states to actually act against the apartheid regime in South Africa. But we saw a very similar situation where especially the Western states continued until the very end to support apartheid until the very last minute. And on the other hand, the states of the South gradually more and more acting against the apartheid regime. And so I think there are actually the enforcement mechanism here is two different, there are two different things. One is, I think, if the states and if the governments of our countries do not act upon their international obligations, the citizens of our countries have the obligation to force their governments to actually comply with their international obligations. That is exactly what happened with the solidarity movement against South Africa. The boycott of South African products, the demonstrations, and gradually also actions which I think are very important from trade unions, for example, stopping the export of goods. And you know that the Belgian trade unions already took a position in that sense that they will not participate anymore. The affiliates of the trade unions will not participate anymore in the transfer of arms to Israel, which I think is a very important decision. And so we have to build a growing movement. We are the enforcement mechanism for the obligations of under international law of our governments. And I think part of that is legal action. And I want to conclude on that in one sentence.
No,
part of that is legal action. And of course, the complaint made in the International Criminal Court is a very important event, but I think there is a much larger variety of possibilities open also in the legal field. The use of universal jurisdiction. We have to find out, for example, the Belgian citizens who had their family exterminated. We have to find out how we can bring this to the Belgian justice system also, how we can bring it to the justice system in the different countries, because the Palestinian diaspora is almost everywhere. We have to look into possibilities to hold our own governments accountable for the non-compliance with international law. The Center for Constitutional Rights in New York, which is affiliated to the organization I represent, the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, they made a lawsuit now against the US government for not doing enough to stop genocide, which is an obligation under the Genocide Convention. It's not only the obligation of the states is not only to not to commit genocide, it's also to act to prevent genocide. Well, the Center for Constitutional Rights brought an action in the United States against the US government on this question. And I think there are hundreds of possibilities like that. Arms trade, citizens' actions on different, legal action on different levels. And that is part of the general movement we have to build, the general solidarity movement, and the general movement to force our own governments to comply with international law, because as I said, we are the enforcement mechanism. We are the only enforcement mechanism. The citizens are the only enforcement mechanism for international law that is actually effective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Yeah, actually, this is the questions. Europeans, they couldn't prevent this genocide this time, but could they stop the genocide or to prevent the next genocide against Palestinians? Thank you very much. Now we welcome here Mr. Johan Wick. He's an analyst in the EU policy. I will invite him to share with you his analysis. Thank you.
Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me loud and clear. First of all, I would like to extend my condolences to all present and all who are listening or watching this conference with the loss of lives of family members of beloved ones in Gaza. We heard a few interesting observations being made here this morning. How should we define the relationship of the European Union with Gaza and Israel? Well, Israel is the largest trading partner of the EU. the Palestinians receive the vastest amount of aid from the European Union. But what can the European Union do? We have heard about a boycott, a trade boycott. But if the EU is the biggest trading partner of Israel, this will probably not materialize. There are initiatives in the private sector. However, everything depends on the Council of Ministers because a trade boycott depends on the decision in the European Council. But there is more. Why is the European Union taking this position? When I was teaching in Dubai, I was teaching the subject of European policy. Students say to me, you speak here about the Holocaust. And to make the picture complete, this was in 2005 when Ahmadinejad, the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, had his rhetoric about this Holocaust denial. Students, especially from Saudi Arabia, told me, look, sir, why are you emphasizing this and why don't you say anything about the Nakba? Why don't you say what happened to the Palestinian people and why this is so important to us? Obviously, my employer, a university from a European country, forced me to remain very silent on the Palestinian question. But I did not feel very comfortable, so I spoke with the local director, which was an Arab from Sudan. I said, look, Abbas, I don't feel very comfortable if I can only point to the Holocaust. I would like to see the whole picture being taught. But I need to have your backing because if Brussels does not agree with me, I will be fired. He said, I will back you. So that gave me room of maneuver to explain the whole situation. What is the problem? If I take a quick look at the room here, I see very few, less than a handful of Europeans. Why is this? Why is the European media not over present in this press conference? Does the European Union want that this solution is going to be, that there is a solution going to be found for this issue? Because we have seen that Ursula von der Leyen, but also the President of the European Parliament were very quick to go to Israel. The Israeli banner was on the European Commission building in no time, but not a single word about the loss of the Palestinians. I question myself, why is this? If you speak to the average European, they know everything about the Holocaust. But what do they know what happened in 1947, 1948? What do they know about the Sykes-Picot Agreement and what do they know about the Balfour Declaration, which opened immigration for the Jews to Palestine? In Holland, you cannot use the word Jew anymore. We are forced to use the word Israeli. This also goes in a certain direction. I can perfectly understand why this is happening, but there should be more efforts made that the European public understands why the Palestinians are constantly victimized since 1947. This is not the first conflict, because the European Union is losing all credibility. I received a remark from a Palestinian earlier in the week saying, we are standing alone. We don't believe in anything anymore because nobody is helping us. Is the world not seeing that innocent civilians, women, children, which are fairly defenseless, are bombed every day? Why is the European Union not making a more aggressive stance? So you can speak about the boycott, but we have seen that the European Union was quick in 11 or 12 rounds of boycotts against Russia. But there was a blowback for the European consumer. If you impose a trade boycott, there will be repercussions from Israel, because we have seen in the war against Ukraine that at some point there was a discussion about fighter jets. These fighter jets were a firm discussion point because certain member states did not want that these fighter jets were going to be delivered to the Ukrainian army. Why was this? Reportedly because Israel said there is high technology in these fighter jets which is delivered by us. If a fighter jet is going to be subjected to a shoot down, this equipment will fall in the hands of Russia. This is not what we want. So it is not only that the European Union is not only saying, okay, we run the risk that there will be retaliation in terms of high-tech arms supply, technology software, for instance, but the vast majority of EU member states know very well that they are over-dependent for their own security of the United States. So going against the wishes of the White House is not done by the vast majority of member states. So we cannot be very optimistic about what the European Union is doing, but the European Union should be forced to restore its credibility. How can this be done? This can be done by making the general public in Europe more aware about what is actually happening and where it is coming from. Because Israel is constantly saying Hamas is a terrorist organization, but there is a political wing, like Hezbollah in Lebanon, which has a political wing. You have the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which also has a political agenda. I'm not supporting these kinds of organizations, but they are resistance movements. Resistance against what? Against occupation, against annexation. We have heard that even the European Union in the past has said every individual, every organization has the right to resist occupation, but apparently not in a given part of the world, because we are now in the 6th week of fighting, bombing, and the European Union has not come out with a firm statement. We have seen last Monday that the Foreign Affairs Ministers' Council did not even come to a common position on a ceasefire or a humanitarian pause. So I would like to say it is up to the member states to step up their efforts and make the Europeans more aware what is happening in Gaza and why, so that they basically see that there needs to be a more even-handed approach, because the European Union, after the Oslo Accords, was seen as a more even-handed actor in the Middle East peace process, which was completely dominated by the US. But Oslo, if you look at the Oslo Accord, this was nothing more than a generous gesture on the side of the Palestinians. You can even argue that in 2005, when the Israeli government under Ariel Sharon said, I will pull out of Gaza, was this not exactly to have a situation like we have now? Because this concentration camp, sorry for the expression, but that's the basic reality what's happening in Gaza. People cannot go out. If you have to go to a doctor, if you have to go to a dentist, or if you want like to go in, you need authorization from the Israeli authorities or for the Egyptians, so it's fairly complicated. So there is no life. This life is suffocating. There are no jobs. There is no income. There is nothing than social disaster. So it's normal that this is a cooking pressure, or a pressure cooker, sorry, and that this is going to explode. So the European Union should be more realistic and restore its credibility, and the members should forget their own personal agenda. Even in the member states, that's my final point, it cannot be that certain prime ministers are saying we are backing this or that position because I'm looking for a new position, for instance, as the NATO chief.
Thank you. The European Union should be more realistic.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I welcome Mr. Advocate Lawyer Isa Gultaslar. He joined us a little bit late, but he's coming. Okay. And after that, we have a word of the speech by the EUPAC by Mr. Majid Al-Zir, and we will go to questions directly. So normally we will finish before 12 o'clock. Yes, Mr. Isa. Mr. Isa today will answer also on the question of Khalid and Muhammad, who asked what we can do against these criminals and these, yes, about against Israel in Belgium and by the Belgian law. Yes, please.
D'abord, bonjour à tout le monde. Je souhaite d'abord m'excuser auprès de vous. Je suis arrivé en retard, malheureusement. Et je m'excuse aussi auprès des autres intervenants. Je n'ai pas... Excusez-moi, je ne sais pas ce qui a été dit. Alors, si vous permettez, je ne vais pas être très très long pour laisser la possibilité au public de poser des questions. Alors, je souhaiterais juste soulever 2 points. Ce qui m'a été demandé, c'était quelles sont les actions juridiques dont disposaient les personnes qui sont à l'étranger, notamment en Belgique, pour pouvoir agir au regard de ce qui se passe. Alors, je ne sais pas si mon confrère Ahmed Fermont a déjà abordé ce point de vue. Je vais être très bref, comme ça vous aurez la possibilité, ce sera plus dynamique et plus vivant, je l'espère. Alors, il y a deux aspects. Premier aspect, je souhaitais juste dire que la semaine passée, vous en avez certainement entendu parler. Jeudi passé, il y a une plainte qui a été déposée auprès de la CPI. Alors, ce n'est pas la première plainte qui a été déposée en ce qui concerne les Palestiniens auprès de la CPI, mais en revanche, c'est la première fois qu'une plainte a été déposée sur et pour le crime de génocide. Alors, c'est une notion qui a été galvaudée ou instrumentalisée par certains, qui est utilisée à tour à travers, mais la réalité de ce qui est vécu à Gaza depuis plus d'un mois, au regard des textes internationaux, au regard de la jurisprudence internationale, notamment sur la Bosnie et même en réalité sur le Rwanda, nous permet de dire qu'il y a un débat qui peut être ouvert auprès de la CPI permettant de qualifier ce qui se passe de génocide. Alors juste 2-3 points de comparaison. Comparaison n'est jamais raison, mais vous devez savoir que la jurisprudence internationale, notamment celle de la Yougoslavie, a retenu le crime de génocide pour Srebrenica. Alors Srebrenica, c'était 8000 morts. Là, on est déjà près de 11 000. Il faut savoir que Srebrenica, uniquement les hommes et les adolescents étaient visés. Ici, vous avez des femmes et des enfants. Malgré qu'à Srebrenica, c'était uniquement les hommes qui étaient visés, le tribunal pénal international pour la Yougoslavie a retenu la qualification de génocide. Pourquoi? Parce qu'elle a dit que ça faisait suite à 3 ans de siège. Retenez bien, 3 ans de siège uniquement. 3 ans. Parce qu'elle avait fait en sorte de placer les habitants de Srebrenica dans une situation humanitairement absolument désespérante pour finalement l'assaut terminal des massacres était finalement le dernier point de 3 ans de siège. Ici, on parle déjà d'un blocus depuis 2006. Alors, il y a ceci. Alors, ce qui avait été aussi soulevé dans cette plainte, je pense qu'il est important que tout le monde le retienne, c'est que vous savez, dans les reconnaissances de génocide qui existent de par la jurisprudence internationale, le plus difficile à démontrer, c'est l'intentionnalité. Ça veut dire qu'il faut qu'il y ait des meurtres de masse, il faut qu'il y ait des crimes, mais il faut démontrer que les auteurs aient eu l'intention de mettre fin à tout ou une partie du groupe, donc ce qu'on appelle l'intentionnalité. Alors pourquoi? Parce que, par exemple, dans le cadre du Rwanda, alors il y a des divergences entre les jurisprudences internationales et au niveau national de ce qui a été retenu, mais le tribunal pénal international pour le Rwanda, par exemple, en ce qui concerne le Rwanda, a retenu le génocide naturellement, mais pas la conspiracy, le complot. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on n'avait pas trouvé de documents attestant qu'il y avait une volonté de. Alors ici, vous avez la différence, c'est qu'en réalité, l'intention des auteurs du génocide sont explicites, parce que publiquement, ils l'affirment. C'est-à-dire il ne doit rien rester de Gaza. Il y a une déshumanisation qui en réalité qui est reprise comme un élément. Par exemple, on présente les Gazaouis comme des sous-humains, des animaux, qu'il faut tout raser. Et ce sont des responsables politiques, c'est-à-dire ce sont des ministres qui tiennent ces discours. Qui plus est, c'est-à-dire que l'intentionnalité est présentée par des références bibliques. C'est-à-dire qu'on fait référence à des prophéties d'Isaïe, on fait référence à Amalek. Alors, en termes d'intentionnalité, je crois que les choses, en réalité, semblent plus ou moins claires. Ça, c'est une première chose. Et une deuxième chose, et je ne vais pas être très très long, c'est que nous avons effectivement des outils à notre disposition ici en Belgique ou dans les pays européens. Mais ce qui est important de dire, c'est que lorsque vous déposez des plaintes en termes de crimes internationaux, en Belgique, nous avons ce qu'on appelle le filtre du parquet fédéral. Ça veut dire quoi? Ça veut dire que le parquet fédéral, qui est une sorte de parquet national au-dessus du parquet national, est compétent en termes de plaintes internationales. Et il peut, lui, considérez que ce n'est pas recevable et votre plainte s'arrête là. Alors pourquoi je parle de ça? C'est parce qu'historiquement, ce qui permettait de déposer ces plaintes, les lois de compétence universelle, à l'origine en Belgique, étaient les plus élargies. Parce qu'il ne fallait pas de facteur de rattachement comme l'Espagne. Ensuite, c'est-à-dire que ceux qui ont milité pour l'application large de la compétence universelle, sans critère de rattachement permettant à quelqu'un de déposer une plainte en Belgique, que l'auteur ou la victime ne soit pas belge, au regard de la compétence universelle, les premières plaintes qui ont été déposées visaient notamment des génocides, le génocide au Rwanda et d'autres plaintes qui ont suivi. Mais lorsque des plaintes ont été déposées à l'époque contre plutôt Ariel Sharon, déjà pour les massacres de Sabra et Shatila, il se trouve que les mêmes qui plaidaient pour une application large de la compétence universelle ont fait en sorte de pousser à la modification de la loi pour qu'il y ait des facteurs de rattachement, à savoir que l'auteur soit retrouvé en Belgique. Ce qui fait que concrètement, ces plaintes, l'aboutissement de ces plaintes est plutôt rare. Ça ne signifie pas qu'on ne peut rien faire, qu'il ne faut rien faire, mais vous avez en réalité des voies qui ne sont pas des voies détournées, mais des voies plus souples. Par exemple, alors, vous avez des possibilités de déposer plainte contre des entreprises qui fourniraient des armes ou qui aideraient l'armée israélienne. À ce moment-là, vous pouvez déposer des plaintes en complicité de crimes de guerre ou en complicité de crimes contre l'humanité. Il y a une autre voie qui a été déjà envisagée depuis plusieurs années. Vous savez, dès qu'il y a une mobilisation en Israël, de trop nombreux binationaux belgo-israéliens ou franco-israéliens sont partis sur place, participer à l'offensive contre Gaza. Alors, il est possible, en retrouvant la liste de ceux qui ont participé à l'offensive, de déposer des actions. On ne vise pas à ce moment-là des responsables politiques qui disposent d'immunité et qui ne peuvent pas être poursuivis tant qu'ils sont au pouvoir, mais étant de nationalité également belge, il est possible techniquement de déposer des plaintes à leur égard. Ce sont des choses qui existent. Et une dernière voie, je vais terminer sur cela, parce que lorsque vous déposez des plaintes en termes de crimes internationaux, je vous ai dit, il y a un parcours qui est parfois aléatoire, qui dépend naturellement de considérations et d'opportunités politiques. En revanche, il y a des choses plus souples. Par exemple, vous pouvez déposer plainte en droit pénal pur. Je vais vous donner quelques pistes. C'est-à-dire que si vous avez une société qui collabore sur place ou qui a aidé l'armée israélienne, pour éviter de passer par le trajet laborieux d'une plainte en crime international, il est possible de déposer quelque chose en blanchiment ou recel de crimes de guerre. Le blanchiment, par exemple, une société qui tirerait profit de son activité avec l'armée, eh bien, crime de guerre, crime contre l'humanité, l'argent qui serait issu de cette activité peut constituer du blanchiment si elle est réinvestie dans les circuits ici. Ou alors du recel. C'est plus souple, techniquement, c'est parfaitement faisable et ça vous évite de passer par le filtre du parquet fédéral qui peut, lui, lorsque vous déposez une plainte pour crime de guerre ou crime contre l'humanité, considérer que cette plainte n'est pas recevable. Voilà, c'est moi qui vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Isa. It was very important, and Mr. Isa gave us a lot of hope also. So after Ariel Sharon, after the wall, after the Goldstein, now maybe this time we will continue with more hope. I welcome Mr. Majid Elzir, who is the CEO of our organization, EUPAC. Welcome, Mr. Majid.
Still a few minutes. Good morning to everybody, and thank you very much for the participants. It's a very sad time for us to gather today for the tragedy and genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, which is taking place in Palestine totally and in Gaza specifically. Millions of people have been marching in European cities to protest the war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and genocide taking place in Gaza. Yet, the conclusions of the European summit meetings did not reflect the mood of the people who have been demanding an immediate end to the genocide in Gaza. We hoped to see real changes as an output of the meeting of the EU Foreign Affairs Ministers, which was 2 days ago. But by the press conference at the end of the summit and the speech of Mr. Borrell lets the next comment still in actuality. The outcome of the European summit of the 26th of October last month and the speeches of Ms. von der Leyen and Mr. Charles Michel in the EU Parliament on the 8th of November. The votes of the EU Parliament on the 16th of October still evade any clear condemnation of the Israeli occupation crimes, including the genocide currently being perpetrated in Gaza, and all of these positions demonstrated the extent of which the European Union was drawn into American policy. How severe must Israeli crimes be to warrant their rejection by the EU and member state leaders? Evading discussions about the suffering of the Palestinians due to these crimes cannot reveal EU actors from their negligence to stop these crimes, to avoid escalation, and to hold the occupying state accountable. The situation has resulted in a widening gap between the expressed desire for justice for the Palestinian people as per the popular will and the actual political will. The gap reveals significant shortcoming in European political performance and the translation of the fundamental European Union principle into practical actions. It exposes transparency, deficiencies, and perceived hypocrisy in dealing with Israel, leading to division even within political parties at the European levels. Consequently, European leaders might face entire legal repercussions due to this stance, potentially harming entire European Union image, a scenario undesired by European citizens. There is a collective sense of not wanting to feel ashamed as Europeans, especially in light of the plight faced by Palestinian children who have lost their families in Israeli bombing of schools in Gaza. This crisis have brought these issues to be the forefront. It could have been an opportunity for the European Union to address and rectify these shortcomings by taking more principled stance. Extremist Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir is blocking the flow of aid and denying safe corridors for the flow of aid at the Gaza border. EU actors have been speaking about humanitarian aid corridors, but they have accepted Israeli conditions on the entry of aid, which requires lengthy and complex vetting by Israeli authorities at the Rafah border, thus delaying the entry of aid to Gaza, while far-right Israeli ministers such as Ben-Gvir previously been recognized as extremists by the EU leaders themselves. The EU is now allowing Ben-Gvir to ban the entry of fuel and water into Gaza. Through its inaction and lack pronouncements on the matter, the EU has tactically accepted the inspecting processes while thousands of tons of aid await entry at the Al Arish airport warehouses and dozens of trucks of aid await entry at the Rafah border. With each passing day, people are dying because of this essential aid is not reaching them. This point was a spot on the non-transparency of the political European level of the European citizens when the EU leaders talking about the safe corridor. We demand the entry of a humanitarian aid into Gaza as quickly as possible in order to save lives. We stress that the reality of the crimes suffered by the Palestinians should not be dictated by friendly European-Israeli relations, regardless of how strong these relations are. The fact that Israel is committing war crimes and that it is perpetrating a genocide is crystal clear. And those who participate in this genocide qualify as full-fledged war criminals. The EU, again, in another matter summit, mentioned the two-state solution, knowing full well that it can't be translated into reality without serious will to do so. Even the youngest Palestinian child understands that the talk of the two-state solution is nothing but empty rhetoric, not based on any facts on the ground due to the occupation, bulldozer, settlements, killing, racism, and ethnic cleansing. There is lack of confidence in European pronouncements since the EU rhetoric is coordinated by its tactic support for Israeli actions on the ground. The EU representative talking about the Palestinian Authority as the representative of Palestinian people and not the PLO, as it should be. And as the most Palestinians believe, that any potential solution should be approved by the Palestinians themselves firstly. The EU also lost its status as an influential and impartial mediator in any future peace process. The return to talk of a two-state solution does not come across as a serious or realistic unless it's accompanied by concrete steps, beginning with call for ceasefire, with condemnation of the occupation crimes, with the holding of the perpetrators accountable, and lifting the siege in Gaza. During the last week, we knew about some, and this is the last point, during the last weeks, we knew about some meetings in some of the EU countries to discuss the legal migration of Palestinians to Europe. Israeli official personalities, last of them was the Israeli Minister of Finance, Smotrich, said yesterday that the best solution is to transfer the Palestinians with an international coverage and coordinations. Yesterday as well, we listened to hundreds of Palestinians in West Bank and Gaza said we don't trust any speeches and any statements anymore. Any kind of displacement of the Palestinians in Gaza, West Bank, or Jerusalem is a crime of ethnic cleansing and a continuity of the Nakba in 1948. It needs an action to avoid a new catastrophe. Declarations are not enough at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't know if we have some questions from journalists and others. Any questions for all of our guests here? Yeah, Nawab.
Question for Mr. Abdul Majid.
Mr. Abdul Majid, can you take the mic? Okay. Traduction. Okay. Yeah, please, Nawab. Nawab, en français aussi? No, he will talk in French. Okay. Other question.
Give me the microphone.
Microphone. Okay. There is mobile.
Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Abdul Majid, you said that 20 lawyers are working to defend this Palestinian cause. 20 lawyers. أنا أجي عربي أفضل. كويس. حضرتك قلت انه 20 محامين يشتغلون لهذه القضية الفلسطينية. أين هم يعني في أي بلد؟ أين هم ومن هم؟ شكرا.
Les 420 avocats, ils sont 420 محامي هم موجودين، هم وقعوا على الدعوة التي قدمت للمكتب الادعاء العام ولمكتب الضحايا. هم من وقعوا، هادو وقعوا فعليا. بل ضمن ال 420 هناك عمداء محامون مشهورين، هناك عمداء محامون فرنسيون من غوادلوب وغيرها من المدن، هناك نقباء محامون وقعوا باسم هيئاتهم الوطنية، بمعنى أنه أزيد من 420، لأن من وقع باسم هيئته وهو نقيب هيئة وطنية، بمعنى أن كل ذلك البلد كتونس نموذجا، كل ذلك المحامون ذلك البلد كله في تلك الدعوة. فبالتالي هو في الحقيقة هو أزيد من 420 محامي. هؤلاء المحامون نصبوا أنفسهم محامو أهل غزة، ونحن قلنا لهم في رسالة من على محكمة الجناية الدولية ومن أمامها: يمكن لكم أن تعتمدوا على هذا الجيش الضخم من رجال القانون، أن يكونوا سندا لكم وعونا لكم أمام القضاء الدولي، سواء ممثلا في الجنائية الدولية أو في القضاءات الوطنية كما طرح الأستاذ عيسى، في المواجهات أو الأوجه أو السبل القضائية الأخرى، سواء في إطار الاختصاص الولائي الشامل أو في اختصاص القضاء الطبيعي، نظرا لأن هناك من يتمتع بازدواجية الجنسية. هناك واجهات قضائية مهمة يمكن أن يعتمدوا علينا فيها. الأصل والمهم في هذا هو أننا سنكون لهم صوتا أمام العدالة الدولية، وأننا سنكون لهم سندا. هذا العهد الذي أخذه كل أعضاء الفريق في كل رسائلهم التي توصلنا بها يؤكدون هذا الأمر، أننا محامي أهل غزة، وأننا الدفاع من اليوم نصبنا أنفسنا دفاعا لأهل غزة أمام القضاء الدولي وأينما وجدوا، وهم من مختلف الجنسيات، فيهم من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، من البرازيل، من أوروبا، على طول أوروبا ممثلة في هذه الدعوة، من إفريقيا عدد كبير، من جنوب إفريقيا عدد كبير، من عدد من دول شمال الشرق الأوسط، ومن الخليج العربي، ومن من كل الجنسيات تقريبا موجودة معنا. اليوم توصلنا بعشرات التوكيلات من كندا كذلك تريد أن تنضاف إلى هذه اللائحة. فاللائحة كما أعلن ذلك السيد جيلدوفير، اللائحة لا زالت مفتوحة. هذا دفاع أهل غزة، وهذا عمل لن نتخلى عليه إلى أن نرى الجناة ينالون جزاءهم أمام القضاء الدولي طبعا. وهو عمل تطوعي مستقل، وأؤكد على هذه النقطة، عمل تطوعي مستقل نابع من إرادة هؤلاء الأحرار.
Mr. Yan?
Yes, I would like to add something to what my colleague said, and also what,
You can take the mic, please.
and also what both my colleagues said. First of all, I think this initiative in the International Criminal Court is a very important initiative. It launches a debate on a very complicated matter, which is genocide. The Genocide Convention defines genocide in a very narrow way. The legal definition of genocide is very narrow. And of course, we all consider that there is genocide in Gaza. But I think it's probably, we shouldn't at the same time neglect war crimes and crimes against humanity. Because war crimes and crimes against humanity are not less serious than genocide. Crimes against humanity are as serious as international crimes, as genocide. And so I would say there is an enormous field open there, in international jurisdictions, in national jurisdictions, in different ways, as my colleague very rightly also underlined. And I think there are actually throughout the world thousands of lawyers involved now in their national jurisdiction. My colleagues in Argentina are bringing cases to the courts in Argentina. My colleagues in the United States are bringing cases to US courts. So there is thousands of lawyers involved in different initiatives. And I think this is a very important initiative amongst many others. And we should try to see how we can promote all these different initiatives. Two, and I think I really want to say that here, yes, the most important work with the International Criminal Court for decades already, for 10, 15 years, has been done by Palestinian lawyers and by Palestinian human rights organizations. My colleague, member of my organization, Raji Surani, who is the director of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, working closely together in Gaza, working closely together with Al-Haq in the West Bank, the two main human rights organizations. They have been documenting war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza and in the West Bank for 10 years. I know Raji, who is a personal friend and a personal, I think he was every month with the office of the prosecutor, with Bensouda and now with Karim Khan. He was every month there with files, with testimonies, with reports, minute by minute on what was happening. Unfortunately, he is not in a position now to continue that work because his house has been bombed. He is the most famous human rights defender in Gaza. His house has been bombed in the first days of the aggression. His house has been bombed by the Israelis. And actually, we don't have contact with him today, and we don't know. So these people have been doing, for years, work with the International Criminal Court, documenting the crimes minute by minute. And I think that is very important because you can't have a criminal case if you don't collect the evidence.
Okay.
One second, please. The prosecutor, the office of the prosecutor, first of all, I'm rather skeptical about the International Criminal Court because Fatouma Bensouda has been, I think, at the end of her mandate has been, and probably she was maneuvering to try to pass, to try to get an investigation going. But we saw, first of all, that as soon as Fatouma Bensouda left, Karim Khan came, and the investigation that was actually almost finished on Israel, he buried it. So I'm rather skeptical about the International Criminal Court, but we have to do it, of course. We have to call everywhere. We have to go everywhere. But the important work there has been done for 10 years by our Palestinian colleagues. And I think one of the important things we have to do, one of the very important things we have to do, is to help them to rebuild their capacity on the ground to document the war crimes and the crimes against humanity minute by minute as they have been doing the last 10 years. Their infrastructure has been destroyed. Their organizations have been criminalized by Israel. Both PCHR and the Al-Haq have been designated as terrorist organizations by Israel. The doors of Al-Haq in Ramallah have been, with a metal plate, it has been closed, the offices, and they still continue. They are, as far as I'm concerned, the real heroes. And they deserve that we do everything what is possible to make their work possible and to make their work continue, because that is essential. Collecting evidence and bringing evidence to national courts, to the International Criminal Court, to all these. If there is no evidence, there will be no court cases.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. So we have another question here, please.
Hello, my name is Sandra from Keeping Channels Open, a dialogue network. I've worked previously for UN, NATO, EU, UK government. I just have two questions. Given we all want a ceasefire, and I have complete sympathy with Palestinians, isn't part of the solution now for Hamas to release all the 240 Israeli hostages? Shouldn't there be pressure on Hamas to do this now? And second, what should Israel have done on a legal basis after thousands of Hamas gunmen or terrorists stormed the borders, massacred 1,400 people, and taken 240 hostages? Was this a genocidal act as well? You know, because they wanted to provoke this war, but none of you have mentioned this. We need to mention that.
And your question for whom? It's a anyhow.
Solution to get Hamas to release hostages.
As far as I know, the first thing Hamas did was propose an exchange of hostages. Because what we forget is that there are now 240 civil hostages, and I agree with you. That is an awful situation. But Israel has thousands of hostages. Thousands. thousands of hostages. The administrative detention system is a system of hostage taking. The administrative detention system is a system of hostage taking. So Hamas, as far as I know, from what I read, immediately proposed an exchange of the hostages it took against the Israeli hostages, against the hostages held by Israel. Also, in many cases, children, as you know. Many children detained in Israel. So there is a problem there. There is a problem there, and yes, we should put pressure on both sides to release their hostages. I fully agree with you. But there should be a balance in that. It's not one party taking hostages and the other one being okay. It's both parties have taken hostages. Both parties, I'm against taking hostages, both for Israel and for Hamas. And of course, we should facilitate, and I think that's one of the things the European Union could do, we should facilitate the release of hostages on both sides. And as you know, after the hostage taking on the 7th of October, there was in the West Bank, additional hostages were taken by Israel. And so we should condemn that. I agree with you. We should condemn that on both sides and put pressure on both sides to release their hostages. Then the second thing is the question of the attack on Israel. Actually, you can't say that a people that are in the situation of the Palestinians in Gaza don't have the right to conduct military action against occupation. Under international law, that is a right. So there is occupation. No, it was of course military action. If you look at Haaretz, if you look at the list of names of Haaretz, there are the proportion of military personnel that died on the Israeli side is higher than the proportion of military personnel that died on the Palestinian side. If you look at the no. Look at Haaretz. Haaretz published the names and the ranks of the people that are that were killed. That is one. A second problem, I think, a very serious problem, is that the people in the kibbutz. Of course, I'm shocked by the fact that civilians die on both sides. That is shocking for all of us. But the problem is that the Israeli authorities have militarized both the kibbutz and the colonies. If you militarize a part of the civilian population, if you arm a part of the civilian population, and I'm talking about the militias in the kibbutz and the militias in the settlements, then under international law, the people that are acting in this way as auxiliaries to the army, that participate in the armed conflict, are unfortunately military targets and not civilians. No, I'm telling you just that if I think war crimes probably have been committed. I want to see an investigation on that. If war crimes were committed by the fighters of Hamas, then of course there should be accountability for those war crimes. But I don't agree when I hear 1,400 civilians killed. That is not true. Haaretz, it's enough to look at the list of names in Haaretz to see that it's not true, that it's a lie. If one says, all these innocent people in the kibbutz, no, unfortunately, a series of people in the kibbutz did participate in armed action and so were legitimate military targets under international law. So if war crimes were committed, they have to be investigated in detail to see what happened exactly, where, who was a military target and who was not. And it has to be done on both sides. It has to be done for Hamas and it has to be done for Israel. But we should stop all the time repeating this kind of, Hamas has to be condemned, Hamas has to be, no. War crimes have to be investigated. That's a different matter.
Yeah, thank
you. And if
you.
war crimes were committed, I agree with you that there have to be accountability for war crimes on both sides.
Thank you, Jan. We also we forgot about one effect that starting from the 7th of October, 8th of October, we have more than 3,000 or 4,000 Palestinians who were kidnapped by the forces of Israel in Israel, who worked in Israel, and they were with no documents, with no even they weren't in the prisoners. Now I will let to Mr. Isa to answer also shortly.
Je voulais répondre à Madame très brièvement. Alors, je vais vous répondre en français, j'espère que vous allez comprendre. Alors, il y a quelque chose de très surprenant dans votre question parce que finalement, c'est marteler ce narratif israélien. C'est quoi? C'est que c'est faire tout commencer le 7 octobre. Avant le 7 octobre, tout était parfait, calme, c'était la paix. Les Gazaouis vivaient dans Disneyland, tout était merveilleux. Et puis le 7 octobre, il y a une catastrophe qui nous tombe sur la tête. Et on est sommé de condamner le Hamas et de dire si c'est un acte terroriste. Je vais vous rappeler juste une chose, madame. Tous les groupes palestiniens depuis 75 ans ont été qualifiés de terroristes. Tous. Tous les mouvements de résistance palestiniens ont tous été qualifiés de terroristes. Tous. L'OLP était qualifié de terroriste, le Fatah était qualifié de terroriste. Ensuite, ils se sont assis autour de la table, ont fait la paix et Yasser Arafat a reçu le prix Nobel. Alors, lorsque des cibles civiles sont attaquées, on peut le qualifier de crime de guerre. Lorsqu'on prend en otage une personne qui est civile, c'est un crime de guerre. Mais, vous nous parlez d'otages. Je crois que les premiers qui demandent la libération des otages, c'est les familles israéliennes. On a le sentiment que l'armée israélienne est en train d'appliquer sa méthode de doctrine Hannibal, c'est-à-dire on s'en fout des otages. On préfère qu'ils soient morts qu'il y ait des otages. Ça, c'est une première chose. Je pense qu'il est important. Alors, par contre, vous ne soulignez pas qu'actuellement, en réalité, et depuis 67, actuellement, il y a 2,5 millions de personnes qui sont en otage, madame. 2,5 millions de personnes, madame, qui sont en otage. Les incursions qui ont été faites par le Hamas, en réalité, les Palestiniens le vivent depuis 45 ans, madame. Les incursions en Cisjordanie, les incursions kidnappent des gens. Je vais juste vous expliquer un mot. Lorsque vous rentrez dans un territoire occupé, parce que personne ne parle de l'occupation, personne ne parle de l'histoire, personne ne parle de droit, madame. Lorsque vous rentrez dans un territoire occupé et vous kidnappez même ce que vous qualifiez de terroristes, des combattants, vous ne pouvez pas les juger au regard du droit international dans les tribunaux de l'État occupant. Ça, c'est le droit, madame.
Thank you, Isa. Merci beaucoup. Candice? Okay, some other question? Rajai, Barakat. We have few minutes only.
Merci beaucoup. L'Union européenne a mis Hamas sur la liste des organisations terroristes. Combien d'actes de terrorisme Hamas a commis en Europe? Et puis, en regardant les images de l'acte terroriste que le Hamas a commis dans les colonies israéliennes, on voit qu'il y a pratiquement 1 millier de voitures incendiées, détruites. On voit des bâtiments détruits, des maisons détruites. Mais est-ce que les terroristes de Hamas ont fait entrer avec eux des tanks, je ne sais pas moi, est-ce qu'ils ont utilisé des bombardiers, je ne sais pas. Et puis autre chose, quand on lit, j'ai vu hier la preuve que l'hôpital Rentisi, il y avait des tunnels là-dedans. Oui, non, mais écoutez, il faut reconnaître la vérité. Hein. Alors, il y avait une liste avec, soi-disant, les combattants qui ont surveillé les otages. Et comme je connais un peu l'arabe, j'ai vu que ces combattants s'appellent Monsieur lundi, Monsieur mardi, Monsieur mercredi, Monsieur jeudi, Monsieur vendredi. Mais ils ont oublié samedi et dimanche. Peut-être c'était le week-end. Hein. Et donc, qu'est-ce que vous voulez faire? Et puis en plus, j'ai vu le monsieur, là, le responsable, je ne retiens pas son nom, un porte-parole américain qui a pleuré parce qu'il a vu un cadavre brûlé, un enfant israélien brûlé par les terroristes de Hamas. et il a pleuré. Et puis suite à ça, des décisions politiques en faveur d'Israël ont été prises. Aussi, le président Biden, quand il était très touché par l'information qui était transmise. Et apparemment, c'est vrai, 40 bébés israéliens étaient égorgés par les terroristes de Hamas. Mais qu'est-ce que vous répondez à tout ça?
Ok, ça va.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci Raja. Et on prend encore, parce qu'on a encore 5 minutes dans la salle. Hein. T'as une autre question? C'est fini? Merci alors. Merci beaucoup.
Et vous ne pouvez pas
oui.
poursuivre
Hein?
en justice les médias qui transmettent ces informations au lieu d'aller à la Cour internationale
Mr.
de la Haye
Najib?
et attendre 50 ans.
Briefly. Mr. Abdelmajid, briefly. No? Okay. So the question, it was like an answer already, yeah?
Peut-être une remarque, maybe just one small remark. I think it's very interesting to read Israeli press. Because, for example, what you mentioned, the question of damages, both to infrastructure and also damages done or the injury caused to some of the civilians, some of the people who died on Israeli side on the 7th of October. There is a series of, I would say, informations published by the Israeli press, questioning the cause of the death and the cause of the damage done to infrastructure. There is a series of articles in the Israeli press saying that the type of, I would say, burning caused on some of the victims is a type of burning that is caused by artillery fire and not by any other kind of weapon. There is a series of, and we know, of course, that there is the Hannibal Doctrine. We know that there is the Hannibal Doctrine, which you very rightly mentioned, which means that there is an official doctrine in the Israeli army saying that when there is a military target and there is actually, it's a little bit, if you want to summarize it, it's we don't mind about collateral damage. If there is a military target, we fire on the military target, whatever the collateral damage is. And that is exactly why I say I think it's absolutely essential for accountability that an investigation, a precise investigation is made. What did the Hamas fighters exactly do? And probably we will come to the conclusion that there were indeed a certain number of war crimes committed. And what has been done by the Israeli army in response? Which of the victims were military personnel? Which of the victims were paramilitary personnel and therefore legitimate targets in the under international law? And which were collateral damage? Collateral damage caused by Hamas, but also collateral damage caused by Israel. And that needs a detailed investigation on the ground. And once we have the detailed information, we will be able to say who did what exactly. And before that, we should be very careful.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Naji. And we should really end this conference now. And I am sure that every one of you will have like a moment to answer for the questions of the